Okay, so we're diving into this blog post called The Reality of Racial Profiling. Are we ignoring a hidden issue?
Yeah.
And this deep dive is all about like really getting into racial profiling, something that, affects all of us, whether we realize it or not.
For sure.
Ready to explore this with me?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a topic that deserves, a lot more attention than it often gets.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess before we, get into the nitty-gritty,
Right.
how would you define racial profiling
Sure.
for someone who might be, hearing this term for the first time?
So I think it's about being, singled out and judged and treated differently just based on your race or your ethnicity.
Yeah.
Not because of anything you've done, but simply because of how you look.
Right.
And sadly, it often extends to the justice system, and it creates, the inequalities that are hard to ignore.
Yeah, that's a really powerful way to put it. And
Yeah.
it makes you think, right?
Yeah.
Like imagine, being stopped by the police or, followed in the store just because of your skin color.
Absolutely.
Right. It's not just an assumption. It leads to, real world consequences.
Yeah. And I think to really grasp the scope of this, we need to, look back.
Yeah.
Racial profiling isn't new.
Mm-hmm.
It's deeply rooted in, our history in systemic racism.
Right.
That continues to shape our present.
The blog post mentions the ACLU finding that Black individuals are 3.5 times more likely to be stopped by police than white individuals.
Yeah.
That's a huge red flag.
It is.
Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And I think that kind of disparity really points to, a systemic issue.
Yeah.
It suggests that, underlying biases are at play. It's not just an isolated incident. It's a pattern.
Right.
And, if you look at traffic stops specifically, there was a study that found that even though Black drivers made up, about 12% of traffic volume, they accounted for like a staggering 30% of recorded stops.
30%?
Yeah.
Wow. That's more than double their representation on the roads.
Yeah.
It's clear that something's not adding up.
Right.
And this isn't just based on, statistics. A Pew Research Center finding really hit home for me. 70% of Black Americans believe that racial profiling by police is a major issue.
That's a significant number.
Yeah.
It shows that, this isn't just some abstract concern.
Right.
It's a lived reality.
Yeah.
For a large portion of the population.
Yeah.
It's about real people experiencing this firsthand, feeling the weight of these biases.
And it makes you wonder, have you ever felt unfairly scrutinized because of how you look?
Sure.
Even if it wasn't as, extreme as those examples. I think we all have those moments of self-reflection where we realize, how much appearances can actually influence our perceptions.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to be aware of those moments, right? To recognize, the role that implicit bias can play in our own judgments.
Yeah.
But, beyond those personal reflections, we need to consider the wider impact this has on communities.
The blog post dives into the social and psychological impacts of racial profiling. And it paints a pretty intense picture.
It does. It really does.
Imagine living with this constant fear of being unfairly targeted.
Yeah.
That fear creates anxiety, hypervigilance, always looking over your shoulder.
It takes a toll.
It does, right?
Not just on individuals, but on entire communities.
It erodes, the fabric of trust.
It does.
When people feel targeted for their race, they lose faith in the systems that are meant to protect them.
Right.
And this can actually lead to an increase in crime because people become less likely to report incidents or cooperate with law enforcement.
Exactly.
So it creates this vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Profiling leads to distrust, which actually makes communities less safe in the long run.
Yeah.
It's counterintuitive, but it makes a lot of sense.
It does.
And beyond that, racial profiling fuels societal division.
It does.
It creates this, us versus them mentality, where people become wary of each other based on, stereotypes and assumptions. The blog post shares some powerful case studies to, illustrate this point.
Yeah.
Real life examples of people who've faced, the consequences of profiling.
Yeah, and I think these stories are so crucial because they really put a human face on this issue, reminding us that it's not just about numbers.
Right.
It's about, real people's lives.
One story that really stuck with me was about this young Black man just shopping in a store. Okay. He's dressed respectfully, behaving, perfectly normally, yet he's constantly followed by security.
Yeah.
It escalates to the point where the manager accuses him of shoplifting.
Right.
Even though there's, no evidence.
Yeah. That's heartbreaking, and sadly, it's not uncommon. These situations are born from assumptions rooted in stereotypes, and it leads to, unfair treatment that can be incredibly damaging.
There were two other case studies mentioned. A Hispanic man gets stopped by the police while driving in a predominantly white neighborhood.
Yeah.
And a Muslim woman is subjected to extra security checks at the airport.
Right.
Again, these individuals, did nothing wrong.
Right.
They were simply going about their day, yet they were targeted because of their race or ethnicity.
It highlights the pervasiveness, of implicit bias, those unconscious prejudices that can, seep into everyday interactions and law enforcement practices.
The blog post then dives into the legal and ethical debates surrounding racial profiling.
Right.
Now, this is where things get really interesting.
It does. It does. It really does.
Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's a complex issue with, strong arguments on both sides. And I think we have to, carefully consider the ethical implications while recognizing the need for, public safety.
On the one hand, there's this argument that racial profiling can be effective in preventing crime. The logic being that, certain groups are statistically more likely to commit certain crimes.
Right.
So targeting them can help, reduce crime rates.
Yeah. But on the other hand, and this is where the, ethical dilemma arises.
Yeah.
Profiling based on race violates, fundamental civil rights.
Right.
It creates a two-tiered justice system, perpetuating discrimination.
Right.
And eroding trust in the very institutions meant to uphold justice.
The blog post brings up the case of United States v. Brignoni-Ponce, which, challenged police practices and set some limits on using race as a factor in law enforcement stops.
Yeah, that case sparked a major debate, forcing us to confront this tension between individual rights and the desire for public safety.
Yeah.
It's a delicate balance.
It is.
And finding that balance requires a nuanced approach.
Speaking of influence, the blog post also explores the media's role in shaping how we perceive racial profiling.
Right.
It's fascinating how media can sway our opinions and reinforce biases.
It is. The media has a profound impact
Yeah,
on our understanding of the world. And sadly, that power can be used to perpetuate harmful stereotypes.
Yeah.
Often without us even realizing it.
The blog post points out how news coverage, especially crime reporting,
Right.
often emphasizes the race of alleged perpetrators.
Yeah.
It's like this constant association of certain racial groups with criminality.
Right.
This can fuel existing biases.
It can.
And create this distorted view of reality.
And social media amplifies that effect, right?
It does.
Headlines and sound bites spread like wildfire.
Yeah.
Often stripped of context, reinforcing those same harmful stereotypes.
It's a cycle that can be hard to break.
It can.
It creates this self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it? The media shapes public perception, which then influences law enforcement practices, and the cycle perpetuates itself.
It does. It does.
It makes you wonder how we can break free from these harmful narratives.
Yeah, that's where community responses and activism come into play.
Yeah.
The blog post shines a light on the incredible work being done by, organizations and individuals who are, fighting back against racial profiling.
Yeah.
It's inspiring to see people coming together, demanding change, and refusing to be silent in the face of injustice.
Groups like Campaign Zero, for example, they're pushing for police reform and greater accountability.
Yeah.
They advocate for things like data collection, transparency measures, and policies that explicitly prohibit racial profiling.
Right. The ACLU is another powerhouse in this fight, providing legal advocacy, educating communities about their rights, and empowering individuals to, challenge these discriminatory practices. Their work is essential in holding those in power accountable.
And it's not just these big organizations.
Right.
There are grassroots movements popping up all over, organizing marches, hosting educational events, and, leveraging social media to raise awareness.
Right.
It's a testament to the power of, collective action.
It is.
and the determination to create a more just society.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that each of us has a role to play,
Yeah.
in challenging racial profiling and promoting equality, whether it's through education, advocacy, or
Right.
simply speaking out against injustice.
Yeah.
We can all, contribute to creating positive change.
Well said. And as we move into, the next part of our deep dive, let's keep that in mind.
Right.
We're not just here to understand the issue.
Right.
We're here to, explore solutions to see how we can be part of, a more just and equitable future.
Absolutely. It's really striking how this blog post doesn't just present the problem of racial profiling,
Yeah.
but it also offers tangible solutions.
You're right. It's not all doom and gloom.
Right.
It actually lays out a path forward.
It does.
A way to address this issue head on.
Yeah.
Which is, refreshing, honestly.
It is.
Whoa.
So let's delve into those solutions a bit.
Yeah.
What concrete steps can we take to actually, challenge racial profiling and create a more just society?
The blog post highlights several key areas,
Mm-hmm.
starting with law enforcement training.
Yeah.
What kind of training programs are we talking about here?
I think we need programs that go beyond the basics.
Okay.
Programs that, equip officers with the knowledge and the skills to interact with diverse communities respectfully and fairly.
So not just knowing the laws,
Right.
but understanding the people those laws are meant to protect.
Exactly. Think about cultural competency training.
Yeah, okay.
This could help officers, understand the nuances of different cultures, the history of, systemic racism,
Right.
and how their own biases might influence their interactions.
And implicit bias training, that seems crucial.
It is.
It's about recognizing those unconscious prejudices that we all have,
Right.
whether we realize it or not.
It's essential for officers to understand how those implicit biases can affect, their perceptions and their decisions,
All right.
especially in those high-pressure situations.
The blog post also emphasizes de-escalation techniques.
Mm-hmm.
Why are those so important in this context?
Well, de-escalation techniques can help officers, reduce conflict,
Right.
avoid unnecessary use of force,
Mm-hmm.
particularly in situations where racial profiling might already be a factor.
Right.
It's about, promoting communication, empathy, and peaceful resolution.
It sounds like these training programs could make a real difference in how law enforcement interacts with, communities,
They could.
especially those that have historically been targeted by racial profiling.
Absolutely. It's about building trust, fostering understanding, and creating a system where, everyone feels safe and respected.
The blog post also talks about community engagement as a key part of the solution.
Yeah.
What does that look like in practice?
I think it's about creating opportunities
Okay.
for meaningful dialogue
Mhm.
between law enforcement and the communities they serve.
Right.
It's about, building relationships,
Yeah.
listening to concerns,
Mm-hmm.
working together to address issues.
So not just town hall meetings where people are shouting at each other,
Oh,
but actual conversations where
Right.
people feel heard and understood.
exactly. It's about fostering a sense of partnership
Yeah.
where law enforcement and communities, see each other as allies,
Mhm.
not adversaries.
The blog post suggests things like, regular community meetings, neighborhood watch programs, and youth outreach initiatives.
Those are all great ways to build bridges, promote understanding, and create a sense of, shared responsibility for safety and well-being.
It sounds like a more proactive approach to policing,
Yeah.
where the focus is on prevention and collaboration,
Right.
rather than just reacting to crime after it happens.
Exactly. It's about, shifting the mindset from us versus them to we're all in this together.
Now, beyond community engagement, the blog post also calls for some pretty significant policy changes,
Mm-hmm.
particularly when it comes to law enforcement accountability.
Absolutely. Accountability is crucial.
Yeah.
If we're going to address racial profiling, we need mechanisms in place to ensure that law enforcement is acting fairly and justly.
What kind of policy changes are we talking about here?
Well, the blog post suggests things like stricter regulations on data collection, independent review boards to investigate complaints, and body-worn cameras for all officers.
Data collection seems like a good place to start.
Yeah.
If we're going to identify patterns of racial profiling,
Right.
we need accurate data
We do.
on police stops, searches, and arrests.
Exactly. And that data needs to be, disaggregated by race and ethnicity.
Right.
So we can see if certain groups are being disproportionately targeted.
Independent review boards could also play like a vital role
They could.
in holding officers accountable for misconduct.
Absolutely. They provide, an objective mechanism for investigating complaints.
Right.
Ensuring that appropriate action is taken, regardless of the officer's race or rank.
And body-worn cameras, those seem like a no-brainer at this point.
They do.
They provide, valuable evidence that can help, determine what actually happened during an encounter between police and civilians.
They can protect both officers and civilians by providing a more complete and transparent record of events.
So these policy changes, combined with the training programs and the community engagement initiatives we discussed earlier, could create a much more just and equitable system of law enforcement.
It's a multifaceted approach, right? That addresses the issue from multiple angles, from individual behavior to systemic change.
It's about creating a system where, everyone feels safe, respected, and protected.
Absolutely.
Regardless of their race or ethnicity.
And it's about ensuring that law enforcement is truly serving and protecting all members of the community.
The blog post also highlights the crucial role that the media plays in shaping public perceptions of racial profiling.
Absolutely. The media has, a tremendous power.
It does.
To influence how we see the world. And unfortunately, that power can be used to perpetuate harmful stereotypes and biases.
The blog post points out how news coverage often emphasizes the race of alleged perpetrators, especially in crime stories.
Right, and this can create an association in people's minds between certain racial groups and criminal behavior, even if that association is not based in reality.
And it's not just news coverage, right? It's TV shows, movies, even social media can all contribute to these harmful stereotypes.
Absolutely. Even fictional portrayals can have a real-world impact, shaping how we perceive different racial groups and influencing our interactions with them.
So what can we do to, counteract these negative portrayals and promote more, accurate, balanced representations of race and crime?
Well, I think we need to be critical consumers of media.
Okay.
We need to be aware of the biases that exist, question the narratives that we're being presented with.
Don't just accept everything you see or hear at face value. Do your own research, seek out diverse perspectives, and be willing to challenge the status quo.
We can also support media outlets and organizations that are committed to, responsible reporting and accurate representations of different racial groups.
There's some great journalists and media organizations out there that are doing amazing work to combat stereotypes and promote diversity in media.
And we can use our voices, right? To speak out against harmful portrayals. Call out bias when you see it. Write letters to the editor. Use social media to amplify positive representations.
It's about holding the media accountable for the messages they send and demanding more nuanced and responsible coverage of race and crime.
And I think it's also important to remember that the media doesn't operate in a vacuum.
Right.
It reflects the biases and the prejudices that exist in our society as a whole.
So addressing those underlying societal issues is crucial.
It is.
If we want to see real change in how the media portrays different racial groups.
It's about creating a more just and equitable society overall, where stereotypes and biases are challenged and dismantled.
Now, the blog post also shines a light on, the incredible work being done by communities to fight back against racial profiling.
It's inspiring to see people coming together, demanding change, and refusing to be silent in the face of injustice.
It's a reminder that we're not alone in this fight.
We're not.
There are countless individuals and organizations working tirelessly to address this issue and create a more just world.
The blog post specifically mentions Campaign Zero, a national organization dedicated to ending police violence.
They're doing amazing work.
They are.
To promote police accountability, advocate for policy changes, and empower communities to demand justice.
The ACLU is another powerhouse in this fight. They've been fighting for civil liberties and racial justice for over a century.
They're legal expertise and advocacy work are invaluable
Yeah.
in challenging discriminatory laws and practices.
And it's not just, national organizations.
Yeah.
There are grassroots movements springing up in communities all across the country,
Mm-hmm.
led by individuals who are passionate about making a difference.
People are organizing marches, hosting educational events,
Yeah.
starting social media campaigns, engaging in countless other forms of activism.
It's a testament to the power of collective action.
Yeah.
And the unwavering determination to create a more just and equitable society.
These community efforts are making a real difference.
They are.
They're raising awareness, changing hearts and minds, and holding those in power accountable.
They're showing that we don't have to accept racial profiling as an inevitable part of our society.
Right.
We can challenge it. Yeah, fight against it and ultimately dismantle it.
It's a long and arduous journey.
It is.
But it's a journey worth taking.
It is.
Because the fight for justice is a fight for the very soul of our nation.
Absolutely.
This has been like a really eye-opening journey so far.
It has.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure.
This blog post has, really shed light on the complexities of racial profiling.
Absolutely. It's gone beyond just stating like the facts and the figures, right?
Yeah.
It's given us, a deeper understanding of the history or the social impact, the legal battles, and most importantly, the human stories behind this issue.
It's really made me think about the role each of us plays, whether it's challenging our own biases or advocating for systemic change.
That's the key takeaway here, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not enough to simply acknowledge the problem.
Right.
We need to be actively engaged in finding solutions.
And speaking of solutions, the blog post actually offers a roadmap for moving forward.
It does.
Which I found incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
It doesn't just leave us with a sense of despair.
Right.
It empowers us to take action.
It does. And I think one of the, most promising areas for intervention is law enforcement training. Okay. The blog post really emphasizes the need to go beyond the basics.
Yeah, it's not just about knowing the laws.
Right.
It's about understanding the communities those laws are meant to serve.
Right.
And how historical injustices might have shaped those communities' experiences.
Think about, training focused on cultural competency.
Mm-hmm.
This could equip officers with the knowledge and the sensitivity to interact with diverse communities respectfully. Yeah. It's about recognizing that, different cultural norms and historical experiences can shape people's perceptions and behaviors.
And training on implicit bias, that's huge.
It is.
It's about helping officers recognize their own unconscious biases.
Right.
And how those biases might influence their actions.
Absolutely.
Even if they don't realize it.
We all have biases.
Right.
It's part of being human, but by becoming aware of them, we can start to mitigate their impact and make more, conscious, fair decisions.
The blog post also stresses the importance of de-escalation techniques.
Mm-hmm.
Why are those so crucial?
Right.
Especially in the context of racial profiling.
De-escalation techniques are all about, reducing conflict, avoiding unnecessary use of force, particularly in situations that are already tense. They can help officers communicate more effectively, build rapport, resolve situations peacefully.
So it's about giving officers the tools to handle these challenging situations without resorting to aggression or violence.
Yeah.
Especially when dealing with, individuals who may already feel targeted or marginalized.
Exactly. It's about promoting a culture of respect, empathy, and understanding within law enforcement.
The blog post doesn't stop there, though.
It doesn't.
It also highlights the importance of community engagement.
It does.
Why is that so crucial?
I think community engagement is all about building trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve. It's about creating spaces for open dialogue, active listening, and collaborative problem solving.
It sounds like it's about moving away from this us versus them mentality, and towards a more collaborative approach.
Yeah,
where everyone feels like they have a stake in keeping their community safe.
Exactly. When law enforcement and communities work together, they can build stronger relationships, understand each other's perspectives,
Right.
create more effective solutions to problems.
The blog post suggests things like, regular town hall meetings, community policing initiatives, and youth outreach programs.
Those are all fantastic ways to foster dialogue,
Yeah.
break down barriers, and build a sense of shared responsibility for safety and well-being.
It's about shifting the focus from, reacting to crime
Right.
to preventing it
Yeah.
by addressing the root causes and working together to create safer, more just communities.
Precisely. It's a proactive approach.
Yeah.
That recognizes that true safety comes from collaboration and mutual respect.
But it's not just about changing the culture of law enforcement.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
The blog post also calls for some pretty significant policy reforms
It does.
to increase transparency and accountability.
Accountability is essential. If we want to address racial profiling, we need mechanisms to ensure that law enforcement is acting fairly and justly, and that there are consequences for misconduct.
So what kind of policy reforms are we talking about?
Well, the blog post suggests stricter regulations on data collection, independent review boards to investigate complaints, and body-worn cameras for all officers.
Data collection seems like a good starting point.
It does.
If we're going to identify patterns of racial profiling,
Right.
we need accurate data on police stops, searches, and arrests,
Absolutely.
broken down by race and ethnicity.
We need to be able to see if certain groups are being disproportionately targeted.
Yeah.
And then that data can be used to inform training, policy changes and community engagement efforts.
The independent review boards could also play a crucial role
They could.
in holding officers accountable.
That's true.
They provide an objective mechanism for investigating complaints,
Right.
ensuring that appropriate action is taken, regardless of the officer's race or rank.
It's about having a system in place where people feel confident that their complaints will be taken seriously and investigated thoroughly.
And body-worn cameras, those seem like a no-brainer at this point.
They do?
They can provide valuable evidence.
Right.
That can help determine what actually happened during an encounter between police and civilians.
Body cameras can protect both officers and civilians.
Yeah.
By providing a more complete and transparent record of events.
Right.
They can help to ensure that everyone is held accountable for their actions.
So these policy changes, combined with the training programs
Right.
and the community engagement initiatives we discussed earlier, could create a more just and equitable system of law enforcement.
It's a multifaceted approach that addresses the issue from multiple angles.
Yeah.
From individual behavior to systemic change. And it recognizes that lasting change requires a commitment from all stakeholders.
It's inspiring to see how many people and organizations are dedicated to tackling this complex issue.
It's a reminder that we're not alone in this fight.
Yeah.
There are countless individuals and organizations working tirelessly to create a more just world.
This blog post has been such a valuable resource, not just for, understanding the issue of racial profiling, but for giving us a path forward,
Right.
a way to be part of the solution.
It's a call to action for each of us to, examine our own biases, speak out against injustice, and advocate for change.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think, the most important question to leave our listeners with is this. What will you do to challenge racial profiling and promote justice in your community?
Absolutely. I think every action, no matter how small, can make a difference.
Yeah.
So let's all commit to being part of the solution.
Yeah.